Well, we did have those 4 workshops that were breakout sessions all happening in parallel. As a reminder for everyone who is interested, they were industrialization, Europe's strategic autonomy, Europe's green transition, and Europe's territorial cohesion. So covering an awful lot of bases there, and I think we've probably got quite a broad spectrum of workshops in this section, whereas this morning I feel like it was all tying together much more easily. Valérie Michaut, you were looking at the industrialization of breakthrough innovation in Europe. So what were the specific characteristics? What were the things that you spoke about?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I will speak in French as I'm representing the French authorities. Donc tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier l'ensemble des participants à ce workshop sur l'industrialisation des innovations de rupture. Les échanges ont été particulièrement riches car basés sur des retours d'expérience variés, tant par l'histoire des entreprises qui étaient représentées que par les domaines d'activité de ces entreprises. Et ces exemples très concrets d'industrialisation, d'innovation de rupture nous ont vraiment permis, je pense, de mieux comprendre en quoi ces innovations sont si particulières et notamment pour leur phase d'industrialisation. Tout d'abord, un premier constat qui a été partagé, c'est qu'en amont de cette phase d'industrialisation, la phase de recherche et développement, qui est par nature très longue, est aujourd'hui très bien soutenue au niveau national et au niveau européen, que les outils qui sont mis à disposition pour soutenir cette phase R&D sont adaptés et fonctionnent bien. Mais cependant, ce soutien à la R&D n'est qu'une partie du problème, puisque les innovations de rupture se caractérisent par le fait qu'elles sont très risquées, difficiles à expliquer de par le fait que le marché n'est encore pas mature, et qu'enfin, elles sont très capitalistiques. Et ces caractéristiques ont aussi un impact au moment de l'industrialisation de ces innovations. Leur financement sera difficile, et notamment au niveau de la phase pilote, c'est-à-dire la phase qui se situe entre la fin de la R&D et la phase d'industrialisation en volume. Il y a cette phase pilote qui est vraiment un gap extrêmement difficile à franchir et qui, de ce fait, nécessite un soutien public. Les investisseurs ont vraiment besoin d'être rassurés par des politiques publiques concrètes qui partagent les risques. Et au niveau européen, l'outil des PIEC, les projets importants d'intérêt européen commun, a été salué. Cet outil représente de réelles opportunités de soutien à ces projets d'innovation de rupture. Mais cependant, ce qui a aussi été noté de manière conjointe par tous les participants, c'est que cet outil est assez complexe à mettre en œuvre et cette complexité joue finalement sur le rythme qui va impacter à l'industrialisation de cette innovation. Et par ailleurs aussi, ce qui est regretté, c'est que cette complexité fait que les PIEC sont peu abordables aux PME et qu'il conviendrait de retravailler la procédure pour les rendre plus accessibles et plus adaptés aux PME. Et enfin, ce qui a été noté de tous les participants, c'est que le soutien des régions et l'organisation en région est essentiel. On a eu plusieurs exemples présentés, notamment par la région Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, qui étaient assez caractéristiques. Et la volonté de la région de favoriser la réindustrialisation et sa volonté aussi à faciliter la coopération entre les différents écosystèmes, à les faire se rencontrer, ont permis à des projets d'exister et à des projets d'industrialisation de voir le jour et de perdurer aujourd'hui.
Thank you very much, Valérie. That was a whistle-stop tour, as I've said many times. I really am impressed at the skill of these rapporteurs, distilling what I know was a big conversation into such a short time frame. But thank you. The next victim to attempt to do that is Michel Mariton. Michel, you were talking about strategic autonomy, something I know that COVID has made all the more important.
Yeah, thank you very much. I try to be short, but at the same time to give justice to the panelists who gave us a very deep and interesting insight into the topic. So, first of all, to remind everyone, so our two panelists were Jocelyne Vasselin, who is the CEO of XFab, so a semicon fab in France, and Marc Lesturgy, who is the Director of International Affairs. So our moderator, Mathieu Rouault from Grand Labo, set us out on a grand scale by calling it not a workshop, but a masterclass on strategic autonomy. And indeed, I think we, especially the panelists, delivered at that level. So first we started, because it's important when we speak about autonomy to know in which sector, about which sector we shall be speaking, where the panelists were speaking from. So of course, Marc presented to us Onera, which is the French aerospace labs with 1,200 engineers specializing in defense, aeronautics, and space. And Jocelyne presented XFab, a global player in the semicon industry with 6 fabs in the world, specializing on various analog technologies with applications in automotive, smart lighting, and medical. Quickly, Jocelyne immediately touched the subject of talents, saying that, and it's kind of nice to have, provided you have solution, nice to have problem for a CEO, which is hiring and meeting customers follow-up. Not a lack of jobs, too many jobs to do and a difficulty to deliver. And indeed, this difficulty to deliver for Jocelyne, so for semicon in Europe, also points to dependencies where Europe is today no longer autonomous. And of course, in the case of semicon, obviously, basically all but one major capital equipment manufacturers are outside Europe. You know their names, they are Applied Materials, KLA, Lam, Tokyo Electron, and only ASML on a key lithography step, but only one of these key production equipment manufacturer is on our continent. So of course it creates a weakness in the sense that in terms of supply chain delay, and even interestingly, even in terms of service, when we have been able to procure one of these equipment from, let's say, a US or Japanese manufacturer, it is very difficult when the tool is down, and you know that semicon is a 24 hours, 7 days a week business, production business. It's very difficult to get a quick service. So definitely bringing back equipment in Europe, equipment manufacturers in Europe, not only the fab, but also the equipment that are inside the fab to do the job, would be, in this respect, a progress. For Marc, for Onera, which is very active in defense, of course, the notion of autonomy and dependencies brings a difficult question of what is secret and what you share. How to collaborate when you're involved in very deep, serious defense programs. So the approach of Onera is to be very selective. Marc took the example of the wind tunnel, which is one of the kind of unique assets Onera has in the world. And for this wind tunnel, the policy is to share the result, but to keep completely secret the sensors that allow to deliver this result. And in terms of things we could do as Europe to improve the situation, Marc took the example of what is called two-line elements, so the catalog of satellites orbiting the Earth, where for many years the only provider of such data was the US, and Onera took the initiative to develop, not exactly comparable, but still a European system that could deliver, I would say, comparable elements, and immediately, if I understood correctly, next week, the week after these first data were revealed, it changed the bargaining position in between Europe and the US on the difficult subject of which satellites which satellite characteristic, which satellites two elements would be disclosed, and those for which it would not be. So this notion of bargaining, thanks to technological asset, I think was one of the key points of the workshop. Then we turn to a little bit more to the future in terms of road mapping and what could be done better. So clearly, there is this notion of speed, the fact that we have many nice ideas and overall nice initiatives, and we spend quite a lot of money, but we are somewhat slow. Example was taken of 2 years delay in between a proposal and the first questions to answer the bid, which for any industry is way too slow, because in 2 years in my industry today the competition landscape has changed. So we should try to be faster. As an optimistic note, in the sense that France Relance 2030, the chairman of which we are expecting any minute now, Mr. Bruno Bonnel, France Relance 2030 was able to deliver feedback in 2 weeks, which is quite remarkable. Then our moderator challenged the notion of Team Europa. Is there a Team Europa or not? Jocelyn was quite frank to say that in semicon today it's either global or not. So there is not really a notion of Team Europa in her industry, which points to the sector dependency of all these subjects. While Mark, in the case of aerospace, because we have Airbus, because we have a duopoly with Boeing, definitely, including with strong and very active European associations with sister organizations like DLR or TNO. There is definitely some elements of coordination to improve the position of Europe. We then turn to the next challenges, and to be short, I will skip a few. There are definitely technological challenges, of course, in autonomy, but I think Mark and Jocelyn, it was interesting to see that in 2 completely different sectors, aerospace and defense and semicon, both executives pointed to the question of talents, saying no talents, no autonomy, if you can summarize the discussion. And then, of course, how to attract talent, how to retain talent, with the fact that maybe for aerospace there is a kind of dream which is still alive, looking at the sky, etc., etc. But for more industrial things like semicon, we should maybe make a concerted effort to promote to the young generations the beauty of such industrial job, including maybe from the company perspective being more quick to promote young people rather than basically our career-based. One more word. And finally, the workshop concluded on a very optimistic note. We are living a very interesting period. The COVID crisis and now the energy crisis, Russia stage war in Ukraine, create definitely an opportunity to change for the better. And the balance and the final statement I will make is that the 2 panelists kind of agreed to say that we need at the same time faster implementation and longer term views.
Thank you. Olivier Mallet, you have experience in distilling these down to quite a short, succinct report, but I know that the green transition is a big area.
Merci beaucoup. Nous avons eu une discussion extrêmement intéressante sur les missions et la façon dont elles peuvent aider à la transition verte, et comment en fait elles peuvent s'appuyer aussi sur l'innovation de rupture et créer de l'innovation de rupture pour atteindre les objectifs qui sont fixés. Donc juste peut-être un rappel d'abord sur ce que sont les missions. Donc c'est un nouvel outil en fait qui est développé depuis quelques années. Pourquoi c'est un outil nouveau? Parce que d'abord en fait on s'est fixé collectivement une cible à atteindre dans un temps précis. Il y a 5 missions qui ont été choisies, dont 4 qui concernent le Green Deal, donc autour des villes neutres en carbone, autour de l'eau, des sols, l'adaptation au changement climatique, et puis la dernière sur les cancers. Ce qui est intéressant aussi, c'est que bien sûr c'est financé dans le cadre d'Horizon Europe du programme 4 Recherche et Innovation. Donc c'est ancré dans la recherche, dans l'innovation, mais ça va aussi bien au-delà, en particulier parce qu'on doit mobiliser les régions, les territoires, les citoyens. Donc c'est une nouvelle façon aussi d'essayer de résoudre des problèmes en essayant d'être le plus systémique possible. Et puis dernièrement, c'est une nouveauté parce que finalement c'est aussi un process, un objectif de transformation sur le long terme. Bien sûr, quand on parle par exemple sur la mission sur les villes, l'objectif c'est 100 villes neutres en carbone d'ici 2030. Donc on est sur des objectifs particulièrement ambitieux. Ça veut dire des changements radicaux, une nouvelle façon de penser, des nouvelles collaborations, donc de l'innovation de rupture. Et une fois de plus, l'innovation de rupture, ce n'est pas seulement de l'innovation technologique, mais c'est aussi l'innovation dans les usages, dans les façons de faire, une gouvernance qui est nouvelle, implication de toutes les parties prenantes, les citoyens, les régions, les villes, les acteurs privés. Il y a aujourd'hui un travail à faire qui a été identifié par les panélistes pour mieux faire connaître les missions, les objectifs, les ambitions de ces missions dans les territoires pour que justement les acteurs des territoires puissent s'en emparer, les faire évoluer éventuellement et puis aussi contribuer à leur manière aux objectifs qui sont fixés globalement. Ce qui est important aussi, si on veut que ces missions puissent être efficaces, c'est qu'il faut avoir justement cette approche écosystémique. Et donc il y a vraiment cet enjeu de coordination de tous les niveaux, cette approche un petit peu par portefeuille, c'est-à-dire qu'on va avoir différents projets qu'on va rassembler, qu'on va mettre en lien et qui vont permettre d'aller plus vite, d'aller plus fort. Donc il y a aussi vraiment cet aspect européen qui est important de mettre en avant. Et puis, dans ce cadre-là, les universités ont un rôle à jouer puisqu'elles sont centrales dans la circulation et le lien entre la société dans son ensemble et la recherche. Peut-être juste un dernier point. Les missions, c'est finalement, on pense collectivement que c'est une excellente façon d'accélérer l'innovation. Ça permet de soutenir les écosystèmes locaux, de les connecter les uns aux autres. Et puis, c'est aussi une façon de montrer le leadership de l'Europe concernant les objectifs du développement durable.
Thank you. A hugely important area, obviously, and an intergenerational challenge as well. Siord Loras, you're going to tell us about Europe's territorial cohesion. Give us a brief overview of that workshop.
I'll do my best. Thank you, and also thank you for the organization for bringing together so many interesting people. In our session, we had 3 people representing regions in different capacities, and they were engaging with people from the Commission also about how to bridge the innovation divide, because that was actually the main topic of the discussion. I'll discuss 3 things with you. The first, it's the challenges, then we discuss drivers, and finally we will talk about success factors for implementation. And if you want to look the session back, you can always find it online if you want. So this is more of a pitch for the session than a literal recap of the session. First of all, money is not the problem, at least funding is not the problem, because there's a lot of funding in Europe, and it's actually all going to nations, but also to regions. It's also working together better, because the different funding schemes are actually contributing to each other in a more inclusive way than before. However, the funding does go to the same systems on the same topics. And that was a bit of the challenge that we came up with, that especially widening countries are not necessarily at the receiving end of a big part of this funding. And this is something we've been playing around with during the session and exploring how we could actually solve this. One of the examples here is, for instance, also the TTO imbalance in Europe. So in the non-widening countries, there is much more capacity to actually get and manage and organize projects than in the widening places. So the question is how to bridge this innovation divide and how to make regions engines for innovation. That was the big question. Going to the second one, what are the drivers then? The drivers for this is actually an inclusive European innovation agenda. That's the first thing that's extremely important to get there. Then also stimulating brain circulation throughout Europe, because that's how you bridge this divide. Also, making sure that the TTO infrastructure is more inclusive, but as well as that regions in widening areas are more critical also about their own role. So it's not just pointing fingers at Brussels, but also the other way around, which is actually one of the nice contributions of one of the speakers. Then last but not least, what are some success factors? I'll run through them really quickly, but include citizens was one of the really interesting parts. Include them in your breakthrough innovations. Work long term. One of the examples was running for 20 years and is successful also because of that. Make sure you really adhere to the local scene, so radically local. And last but not least, also work on the regional autonomy. So this was a wrap-up of the session.
For being so concise and adhering to time, because we're now, I think, going to give a big round of applause to our rapporteurs and move on to the closing sessions.